Okay, so in this video I'm going to change things up a bit, and we're going to do C#, but we're going to use it to build an actual graphical user interface. I'm hoping maybe going through this might help put some of the concepts that we've been working on this semester, hopefully put them together in some sort of context that is a little bit more tangible. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so I'm going to go to File, New. I'm going to go to Project, and I'm going to go to Visual C#, and then I'm going to click on Windows Form Application, and I'm going to call this Contact List. All right, maybe we'll build to store names and phone numbers. Okay, so then I'm going to hit OK. Alright, and you might remember a lot of this from the time that you did Visual Basic. It's going to be very similar to that, except this time we're going to do it in C#. I'll go ahead and make my form a little bit bigger here. And before we actually build the form, let's set up a class for this form. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Contact List, I'm going to right click, I'm going to add, and I can just go to Add Class, and we can name this Contact. Okay, and then we'll add that. And here's our class here. And we have a namespace. So our form, later on when we look at the code, will also be in the contact list namespace, and that's automatically generated for you when you create the class in this way. Normally we do the empty code file, but for this we'll go about it this way. Some of the other stuff we won't need, so we can delete that, and we'll just leave the using system. Okay, so our contact list will have private, maybe first name, or as a string, first name, private string last name. Okay, and then the next one can be something like private string and then phone for the phone number. Okay, and then let's set up some properties. That'll be public string first name, and then get return first name, set return, set first name equals value. We can do the same thing for last name. And finally the same thing for phone. Oh, not phone name, phone, just phone. Here for the phone number, maybe we can do a little bit of data validation. So let's see. Okay, so delete this real quick. If value dot length equals, and a phone number normally is the area code, that's 3, the prefix, that's another 3, that's 6 plus 4. Normally a phone number is 10 digits. So if the length equals 10, then we will set phone equal to value, right? Else then we'll leave it default. We'll leave the default value. So what is the default value? Well, we'll just do else, and we'll do phone is, and then we'll just do all zeros. 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 4, and we'll just do that. And this will be a signal to the user that something went wrong with the number. Right. Now don't get confused with the brackets here. This is the end of class, and this is end of namespace. And of course that's the end of the property there. Okay, so next thing could be our constructors. So we'll do public class contact. And this will be our default constructor. We will do first name equals John. Oh, I'm sorry, not public class, just public, sorry. Okay, contact, last name is Doe, and phone can be this thing here. We can also have an overloaded constructor, public contact and we can do this oh, okay, so overloaded, so we're going to do string first name, string last name, and string phone. And then we'll do first name property equals first name parameter. Last name property equals last name parameter. And then finally last name property equals phone parameter. Okay, so I think that looks pretty good. Now the other thing I wanted to do is, for this class, every object you create in C# has a toString method inherited from the I guess the grandfather of all classes, which is the object class, since everything is an object. So with that, every object you create in every class that you create inherits properties and methods from the object class, and one of those methods is called toString. That toString method, we can override it. So I'm going to do public override, and it already knows I want to override the toString method, and by default it just returns the name of the object, which is not very useful. Alright, so we're going to modify this a little bit. So what we want to do is make our own way of returning the information to the user. So normally a first name and a last name usually comes a certain way with a comma, things like that. So we could make a string variable called string output and set it equal to nothing, or we could do, I think, string dot empty. Alright, so we set it equal to something, and then here we can concatenate our output. And the reason we have an error is because we haven't returned the string yet, but we will once we finish. So maybe something for the output could be output plus equals, so we're going to concatenate. I'm going to add to the string. So we could do maybe we could use string dot format, and then here we can use our placeholders. So we could have the first one here for the last name, and then we could have this one here. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so I'm going to do the last name there, maybe a comma, a space, and then another placeholder for the first name. So then here we have last name first, comma, first name. Okay, so whenever we call the toString method, it's going to display the first name and the last name. But I also need the phone number, so I'm going to put a space here. And then for the phone number, let's try this out. Okay, so output, we're going to add to our output string. We're going to do string dot format, and then we're going to format it. So we're going to put the area code first in parentheses. So I'm going to do something like this, and then a space, and then another placeholder, and then a hyphen, and then the last part of the number. Now, how am I going to break the phone number apart so I could put it in these placeholders here? All right, so I'm going to have to kind of separate everything. Okay, so what we're going to have to use, the substring method. So here I'm going to do, I'll zoom in a bit. Okay, so I'm going to do phone dot substring, and then I'm going to start from the first letter, and I'm going to go all the way the start index, that's what it's called, and then I'm going to go all the way to 3, so that should give me the area code. Then I'm going to do phone dot substring, and then the prefix to 6, and then finally I'm going to do phone dot substring, and then from 6 all the way to 10. So you can see that it's a little long, but that should break our number apart into several parts. Right? So we'll get the first 3 digits in our phone number, put that here in parentheses, get the second part, put that here for the prefix, put a dash between it, and then finally get the last part and then put it there. Okay, so that was a little long, but hopefully it works okay. So return output. Okay, now that we've done that, I think we're done with our class for now. If not, we can always come back and add to it. So we can close the class out, and then now we can go to the actual form design. And this should be familiar to you when you took the Visual Basic course. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up some text boxes so we can get the input from the user, and then I'll have a button, and then I'll have a list box that can display our contact list. Alright, so let's get some, we can start with labels. So here under the toolbox, in case you can't find any of these things here, you can always go under View and then Toolbox, and that'll bring it up. You'll need the Solution Explorer, so View, Solution Explorer, and then finally Properties is also View Properties window, and then you can kind of arrange it like this. And then you can also drag this out if you need to make modifications to the controls, which we will be doing that. So I'll extend this a bit, at least while I'm working on my form. So I'll need a label, 2 labels, 3 labels. I'll need some text boxes. Just throw them anywhere for now. Okay. We'll need a button. Scroll here. And if you can't find it, just remember it's under all Windows form controls. So I'll need a button there. It's a little bit bigger. And then finally my list box. And then make this a little bit bigger. Something like that for now. It doesn't have to be perfect. You can make this a little longer. Okay, and then if you want to, you can increase the font size of everything. Just click on the form itself. Under properties, you should say form 1. And under font here, we can change this maybe to 10. Make it a little bit bigger. There you go. And I can move that here for now. Drag that over there. Okay, so something like that. Now let's name our controls. Well, we can do the labels first. So go to label 1 and then go to the text that's displaying. Right now it's displaying label 1, and here I'm going to put first name with a colon, and then here I'm going to put last name, a colon, and then here I'm going to put phone. Okay. And then here for the button, I can put the text here as well. I'm going to put something like add contact. Right. So hopefully we press this button and it'll add it to the list. I'm also wanting to, just so you can get prepared, also want to create an array, add it to the array, and then write the array to a text file, so that way every time we open this, we can actually save our work. Okay. So click on the text box. Now let's change the name of it. Right now it's called text box 1. It's not a very good name. So let's do txt first name, and then here txt last name, and then here txt phone. Okay, and then here btn add contact. Okay, and then the list box could be instead of list box 1, it could be lst contact or contacts. Okay, so now let's create our event handler. Just double click on the button, and this properties I won't need anymore, so I'm going to dock that right there. And if we see the form here, we will see it's also a class, partial class form. It inherits from the form class itself, but of course this is our own form, so then we can add to this class, and we can add event handlers and different things. So here I added the event handler btn add button click. Right, it has 2 arguments here, but we don't need to mess with those. We're just going to type some code here. Alright, so what we're going to do first is we're going to create an object of type contact, right? And our contact is available from the contact list class, from the contact list namespace. Right? We do find the object because it is in the same namespace as this form here. So that's contact. We can call this obj equals new contact. Right? So we create our contact object using the default constructor with the default values. Now what we're going to do is we're going to get the values from the text boxes and assign them to the properties of this object. So obj dot first name equals, our text box was txt first name, and then we need the property of this text box, so that's dot text. Right. And then of course this is not Visual Basic, so you do need a semicolon. Okay, so now obj dot last name equals txt last name dot text semicolon, and then obj phone dot obj dot phone equals txt phone dot text. Alright, so we're getting the text from the text box property, and we're assigning it to the properties of our objects. Alright, so we're dealing with one object here and its properties, and we're assigning it to another object, one that we created ourselves, and we're assigning it to those properties. And then what I want to do is, just to test this out, I want to add the information from this object to our list box. Okay, so to do that, our list box is called lst contacts, and then dot items, and then dot add, and then we're going to add a string, or it takes an object, but we can put a string if we want. So we're going to do obj dot, and then remember we overrode the toString property, so we're going to convert our object to a string, and we're going to add that string to our list box. Okay, so with that, I think we're ready to test this thing out. Hopefully it works. I'll go ahead and run it. So this is our form. Not the nicest form, but it's functional. So we can start with let's say Jack uh, Nicholson. I don't know. And for the phone number, we're not going to put the parentheses and the dashes and all that. We're not going to store that because that would be a waste of space, right? We're just going to put the number in without all that. And hopefully when we display the list, it will put the parentheses and the dashes and all that. We don't necessarily want to worry about it. So I'm just going to put 956 777 8888. So let's add it and see what happens. Okay, so we did have an error here. So let's see what happened. When using the two argument find string, find exact string methods, the combo box, start the index parameter, working with a collection. Okay, so phone length must refer to a location within the string. Okay, so I figured it out finally. Here for the substring, the first one worked, but the rest of them didn't. The reason for that is if I zoom in real quick and we take a look at this a little closer. Right, if we look at the two parameters, one is the start index and the other one is the length of our substring. So this works because we're starting at the first value in our phone number. So let's say it's 956. I'm starting at the 9, which is the first value in our string. But this argument here is the length of the substring, not the last index. So I guess I got a little confused there. So I assumed that this was the last index in our for this argument, but it's actually the length. So we start at the first value, or we start at the first element in our string, and the length of our substring will be 3, right? So it'll be 3 characters. So then on the next one, I'm going to start at 3 because if we count 3 from 0, we count 3 times. That's 0, 1, 2. So that means the next part of our phone number starts at 3, but the prefix is also a length of 3. Right, so now it makes more sense. So we start at 3. So that could be 686, let's just say, the prefix. And then finally here for the last part, because if we count from 3, so that's 3, 4, and 5. So then our start index for our last substring is going to be 6, and the length of that substring is the last part of the phone number, which is usually a length of 4. Okay? So with that, now it should work okay. Sorry about that. Now let's go ahead and run this. And I'm going to put here again Jack Nickel. And his phone number is going to be 956 777 1900. So now let me add that to my list here. You see, now it's formatted correctly. So that's Nickel Jack 956 777 1900. Okay, so now we can continue and adding more things to our program. So we at least know that the output is working okay. So it was just the modification of the substring. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is set up an array to hold our lists or our contacts, and also set up the stream reader and stream writer so we can actually save this list here. So this application can be a little bit more useful. Now for our array, we're probably going to want that to be a global array. We can put that here. This could be global. and we could make it private. So private. Let's see, contact. And let's see, so contact array. Oh, we have to call it something. So then the name could be phone book, let's just say. Phone book. And it equals new contact. And for now we can just set it to size 1. Right. Let's see here, what's the issue? Oh, sorry. I've been doing arrays in C++, so sometimes I put things in the wrong place. Alright, so we created an array so far of just size 1. Okay. But then as we add new names to our list, then we will modify this array. We'll modify the size of it, or we'll create new arrays to hold the information. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is here above the event handler, I'm going to do a function to write to a text file. I'm going to call it private. The return type is void, and I'm going to call it write. And every time I pass an object to the write function, I want to write it to my text file. All right, so that way if I have a new object, I can save it. So then I'm going to do contact. This is my parameter. It's a contact object, obj. Right, and then I'm going to write this object to my text file. But my text file is going to need to have a few things in it before I can use it. So let me go ahead and we can go here under Solution Explorer, and we can go open folder in File Explorer. Alright, so then that should take us to our folder here. And then I'm going to go to bin. I'm going to go to the debug folder. And then here I'm going to I'm going to go to new, and I'm going to add a text file, and I'm going to call it contacts. And it's .text. I'm going to go ahead and open it in Notepad. And the first thing I want to store is going to be the size of the array. I need to save that somewhere so that way when I want to create new arrays, I already have the length or the size. So for this one, I'm just going to do 1 just to kind of initialize it. And then I'll just put the first name here. So first name, nickel, second name, and then the phone number. So that was 956 686 1900. So I will save that in my text file there. Close that out. So I have that already set up. Okay. So then now I'm going to create a stream writer object. So that's stream. Oh, before we do that, what most important thing is we need to put the using system.io class or namespace, so then we have access to all those classes, right? So don't forget that. Okay, so now I can do stream writer, call it SW, and it's going to equal new stream writer, and then we can pass an argument here, and we'll call here, we'll put the path for our contact list, so we called it contacts.txt. Okay. Alright, So then the first thing I want to do is I want to write the length of my array into this text file. So before I started with 1. If I add a new object, I want it to increment to 2. If I have an array of size 2, I want to increment it. I want to create an array of size 3. So I need to store that information here. So that'll be the first line of my text file. So write line. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my phone book, which is the name of my array. And I'm going to get the length of it. Length. And I'm going to do +1. Okay. So then that'll update the size. And then the next thing I want to do is my new object that I received as an argument to this function, I want to write that at the very top of the list. So I'm going to do sw.writeLine, and then I'm going to do obj dot, and then we start with the first name, and then I'm going to write sw.writeLine dot obj dot last name, and then the last thing I want to write to my file is sw.writeLine, and then I want to write obj.phone. Right. So I'm going to write the first name, the last name, and the phone number to my text file. But my array already has all the contacts from before I added this new object. Before I added this new contact to my list, I already had a whole list of other contacts. So I don't want to lose that information, so I want to write that back to my text file. So for that, I'm going to need a for loop, and I need to go through the array and write all those names back to my text file. So then I'm going to do for int x while it's equal to 0, while x is less than my phone book size or length, and then x plus plus. Right, so I'm going to do something very similar to what I did here. So I'm going to do sw.writeLine, but then instead of it being just one single object, now I got to traverse through my array. My array is called phone book and sub x, and then I'm going to get the first name and write that, and then sw.writeLine, and then I'm going to do phone book sub x dot last name, and then sw.writeLine dot phone book dot x dot phone. Alright, so I'm going to write all those values back to my text file. And then once I'm finished with my text file, I need to make sure that I close it, not close. Alright, so that'll help me save everything back to my file. Okay, so then the next function I would need is a read function, so I can read the text file and create a new array, right? But then what happens to the old array? Well, actually C# will take care of it. It'll get rid of the memory later on through a process called the garbage collection or the garbage collector, but with something we don't have to worry about. So what we're going to do is we're going to create private void read, and our read won't take any arguments. Okay, So then now we need to build a stream reader, and that's going to be sr equals new stream reader, and we're going to use our text file that has all our names in it. Okay, and then from here we're going to use our same array variable. It's called phone book, but this time we're going to point to a new array ID. So this is kind of like the dynamic array that we did last time. So we're going to do something very similar. So new, and then it's contacts or contact, and then for the size, we're going to need to read the first line of our text file. So then what we're going to do is sreader sr dot read line, and then this line that we're reading. So remember when we created the first text file, let me just bring it back up to remind you. Go back to bin debug text file here. Remember here, this 1 corresponds to the size of the array. Right now we only have 1 element, so it's only a 1. Alright, so that 1 is what we're reading here, but we need to convert that, since this is an index or the size of the array. We need to convert all of that, convert to int 32. Okay, so we'll read that first line in our text file. We convert that first line into an integer, and we set that as the size of our array, right? So we still have the same one here called phone book. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to loop through the text file, and we're going to set up new objects for our array. Alright, so x is less than phone book dot length. We have a new length now because we got that since we allocated it here. X plus plus. Okay. First things first, we're going to create a new object, new contact, using the default constructor, and we're going to put that in our array. And then once we have that object in there, then we're going to start assigning the information from the text file to the object's properties. So we start with first name, and we set that equal to stream reader dot read line. So it'll read the next line in our text file, which should be a first name, and then phone book x dot last name equals the next line, which should be a last name if we've kept everything in order. And then finally phone book sub x dot phone equals stream reader stream read line, right? And we don't need to convert any of this other stuff to integers or anything else, because our classes consists only of strings, right? So this will work for us. So then this will loop through every element or all the information through in our text file, and then once we're finished, we've set up all our objects again. So then now we can go ahead and close our stream reader dot close. Okay, so the next thing we need is we want to display everything that's in our array. We want to display it in our list box, right? We want to display it here. so that way it will update our list. So then we're going to create a new function here called private void, and we can call it display. Okay, so we might call this function several times while the program is running. So each time we call it, we want to generate a new list or display a new list. So what we're going to do is we're going to clear out the old list. So it's lst contacts dot items and then dot clear. So that'll clear everything out. So we start from scratch. And then we're going to loop through our array. So then we can do for int x equals 0, and while x is less than phone book dot length x plus plus. Did I misspell length? I did. Okay. And then here we'll add all our contacts to our list box. So to do that, we can just simply call the toString method, right? Similar to what we did here. Right, so we're going to do something like this. Actually, we're going to go ahead and remove that. Put that there. Except here we're not dealing with one object, we're dealing with an array of objects. So then what I'm going to do is phone book sub x, and we're going to do toString. Right. So then every time I call this function, it should update my list box. It'll clear it out initially and then put all my contacts back there so I can look at them. Okay. One of the last functions we'll also need is a way to clear the text boxes. Once we add a record, it's going to be in our list box, so we want to clear out our text boxes. So so when I add the information here, I press add contact, I want to clear out all this stuff again. So for that we could do something like private void, and we can say something like clear form, and then we will simply txt first name is going to equal string dot empty txt, I'm sorry, first name dot the text property, so dot text, there you go. So then this is last name dot text string dot empty, and then I'm going to do txt phone dot text equals string dot empty. All right, so that'll clear out my form. Okay, so now again, when I go back here to add contact, I create my object, I get all the text from the text boxes, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to write my object to my text file. So it takes an argument, as you can see, called object. Oh, I'm sorry, it went away. You see it takes an object of type contact, and I'm going to call it obj. So then I'm going to write that to the object. Then I'm going to read the information from my text file, and I'm going to load it into my array again. Right, so that's what my function is doing here. Right, it's getting the information all over again and then setting up my array one more time. Then what I want to do is I want to display the information in my list box. So that's step 4. And then step 5 is I want to clear the form, right? So that way I can enter a new name. Right? So I'm going to do 4 things. I'm going to write to text file. I'm going to read the information from the text file and load my array again. Then I'm going to display the information into the list box so I can see all the names. And then at the end, I'm going to clear my form so that way I can enter a new name. Okay. One of the other things we need is when the form initially loads, we want to already show the user all the names in the text file. All right. So what we need to do is we need to on form load, which is a special event handler. Whenever the form loads, you can execute a set of commands. So to access form load, you can just double click anywhere outside of these other controls. Just double click once, and then you see we have form 1 load. So then from here, what we're going to do is we're going to read the information from our text file. So we call the read function. And then I'm going to display the information in the array. Right? So that'll help us get this started. Right? So if we didn't make any errors, all of this should work okay. Right? So let's go ahead and try it. Zoom out a bit. Okay, so we're already off to a bad start because we should have seen the name in our array, or the name in our text file. Let me check something real quick. Okay, so the problem was here under the stream reader. The name of our text file is contacts, not contact, right? So gotta be careful with that. So now let's run it. Okay, so then now our first name pops up here. So then we're gonna add a new name. Let's say this is Mary Smith, and her phone number is 956-787-4545. And I'm gonna add the contact, and it added it to the list here. Okay, we can add one more name, Larry, or just do something else, Tim Smith, and his phone number is 956-457-1004. And then let's add that. Alright, so then now Tim Smith is here. So Mary Smith and Tim Smith. And you could add your name if you want. So Nick Hino. And then 956-777 1890. Alright, so then that's there. Okay, so now I'm going to close this out. I'm going to run it again. And then our text file is it's still reading the information from our text file. We can take a look at our text file and see what happened to it. So I'm going to go to Open Folder and File Explorer here. Let's go to Bin, Debug, go to Contacts. So you see the size of the array initially is here. Then we have the first name that I wrote there, and then I wrote all the other stuff that was in the array. I wrote it back to the text file, and then of course I create a new array using the read method. Okay, so to incorporate some of the stuff that we've been doing last week as far as sorting goes, what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go back to my form here, and I'm going to create a new button, and it's going to be for sorting. Alright, so we could call it something like sort list. Okay, and then I'm going to get my property here. Here's, I could say for the text, sort list. Okay, and then the name of the button is btn sort. And then what we're going to use bubble sort, and we're going to sort the names in the list, or we'll sort our array. Okay, I'll put that back here. And then I'm going to go ahead and create an event handler here. And rather than doing all the code in the sort button here, I'd rather create a separate function. That way, if I need to use it elsewhere, I can. So I'll create it here at the bottom. I'll call it private void, and I'll call it bubble sort. And I don't think I need any parameters at the moment. Okay. I do need two variables though. I'm going to need a temporary variable called contact, and I'm going to call it temp. Okay, so it's never used. That's fine. The other one I'm going to need is boolean or bool, and I'm going to call it swap. And then I'm going to set up a do while. Okay, so do while swap equals true. Okay. And of course it's angry because we haven't assigned a value to swap yet, but we're going to do that right now. So swap, we're going to assume is false. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to loop through my array and try to sort everything, right? Or do the bubble sort, right? And we talked about that in another video. So I'm going to do for int x less than 0 while x is less than phone book dot length -1, and I can then close that -1 in parentheses, and then I'm going to do x plus plus. Okay. Now if phone book dot x, and then we can sort by last name dot, oh, I just remembered this is not like C++, so there's actually a different way of sorting the sorting strings in C#. Let me get that, hold on. Okay, so if the first value, the first last name of the first element dot compare to, and then we're going to compare it to the last name of the next value in the phone book, so phone book dot x plus 1. All right, so this function will return some sort of numeric value. So if it returns a value greater than 0, then that means that this value is larger than this value, or actually a dot last name, oops, dot last name, and I close that in parentheses. All right, so I'm going to compare the last name of the first element in the array, compare it to the last name of the second element in the array, and if the first one's bigger, then I need to swap them. So then that's temp, and then I'm going to do phonebook.x. I'm going to swap that variable. Okay, so phonebookx, I'm going to set it to temp. Then I'm going to set phonebookx equal to phonebookx plus 1. And then I'm going to set phonebookx plus 1 equal to temp. And then I'm going to set the swap bool flag. I'm going to set it to true, because if this code happened here, if this if statement was ever true, then I need a swap. So then if I need a swap, I need to go through all the elements in the array again. So that's the bubble sort there. And if this does not seem familiar to you, then make sure you check the other video I had posted recently. Okay, so then here for sort, what I'm going to do is I'm going to call bubble sort, and then I'm going to redisplay the list. So we'll see what that does. Let's try it out. Okay, so I have my values here. So this looks in order, except this Smith here needs to be moved. So let me go ahead and sort list here. Alright, so then now that put them in order there. But then let's see what happens when I add a name. Okay, so then let's do John Jones, and his phone number is going to be 956-843-1212. Let's add that to the list. You see John Jones ended up on the top here, but if I sort the list again, then he ends up in the right order there. Alright, so I think what happened was when we add to the list, we redisplay it, but we redisplay it before sorting it. So it's kind of a problem. Let's close this out. Let's run it again. You see, and then it's in the same order, but everybody else is sorted. So one thing you can do is, since we created this as a separate function here, we can actually just bubble sort every time we add a contact. We can bubble sort and then redisplay. Alright, so we'll put that in the middle there. So then now let's see if that works. Okay. Let's do Nancy. I'm horrible coming up with names. Nancy. So maybe something in the middle. McDonald. McDonald's. I'm hungry. 956 787 1345. Add to the list. Okay, so that's working now, and it sorted it. So close it out. Run it one more time. It sorted it, but it didn't write it in that order. Okay, well that's okay. right, but you get the idea. So maybe to fix that problem, maybe we should bubble sort first and then read the file maybe. Okay, so let's try that. So initially it's going to be out of order until we run it again. So let's see, let's put something else in the middle again. Let's put let's say Manny Navarro. His number is 956-789-1435, and then add that. I still put it at the top. Oh, maybe I need to press the sort list button. Okay, so that kind of works. That works okay. Not perfect, but maybe I'll leave you all to fixing it there. I think this video's already gone pretty long. But as long as it's functional, it doesn't crash. That's the main thing, right? So I hope this video maybe put some of this stuff into perspective, why it's useful, because now, as you can see, we have something that's actually functional that you could use in real life, right? And it wasn't that different from the things we've been doing, right? The only thing that was different was adding the form and some of the GUI controls, but that shouldn't be an issue too much since we've done a little bit of that already in the past. Okay, so if you have any questions about this program or you're having a little bit of trouble with it, please email me. And thank you very much for watching.